These logs are from Senior Technical Operations Specialist, IIKZ. Okpala's private files. These files have been compiled using an offline text software built by KZ, Okpala. These files are conjecture and only reflect the opinions and biased insight from Stoei Okpala's perspective. All names, personally identifying details, and some elements of the stated findings have been altered to protect national security interests. Months and specific days have also been altered. Years have been entirely redacted. Entry 1, March 19th, 20XX. Okay, so I'm not sure how legal it is to journal about this, but oh my god, I'm on-sited at. I guess we can call it Central Lab 40. 7, if you think I'm referencing the other place, you're surprisingly mistaken. A lifetime's worth of work to be here has finally paid off. And I didn't even know this place existed until 3 months ago. Though I guess the previous 5 years of prep should have given me an idea that something like this would exist. Still, I don't think 50 years could have fully prepared me for what I'm helping to support. It's funny, so many times, I've questioned if my sacrifices were worth it to be in a place like this. Deep down, the answer had always been a resounding no. I was driven forward more by the desire to see what was on the other side. But now, it's almost laughable that that was ever a question in my mind. Either way, my team seems competent enough. Morrison, our laboratory's leading director, has been involved with projects like this for the past 3 decades. And hey, if a guy could keep operations like this running with Stone Age tech, then who am I to question his methods? On top of that, he's a great guy to work around. It's always helpful when a good director is the type of guy you'd have a beer with. Despite the work, the lab is a pleasant place. People freely crack jokes, talk about family on the outside, and reference memes from our not. So, allowed servers that connect us to the outside. I can't wait to see everything this place has in store for us. I'm certain we'll accomplish great things. Entry 2, July 4th, 20X. Happy 4th. To who? Who cares? It goes without saying that in this line of work, federal holidays mean all of Jackass's shit take here. The project takes precedence over all manner of holidays, leaves of absence, or workers' rights. Try suing the federal government over a top-secret project because you didn't get enough minutes for your lunch break. Anyway, coincidentally, Morrison is a big 4th of July guy. He assured us that riding our asses for the past 3 months was only so that we could get this one day off and have an authentic American barbecue. How nice, though. I'd argue sleep deprivation isn't worth under-seasoned burgers and overcooked ribs. Just my opinion. Still, it was fun. Plus, it gave me time to come back to my journal and get to know some of my coworkers while also trying to figure out what exactly is going on here. Despite my top secret clearance, I'm still not privy to everything behind the scenes. As far as I know, no one is. I maintain operational and research needs, but I'm only really aware of the needs. Not all that they support. That's where the rumor mill comes in. While here, I became close friends with managing senior engineer Abed Abadati. Seeing as Abed is involved with the research, after a couple of beers and a very manly conversation about how much he misses his wife, I'd pop the question, just what are we doing here? To my surprise, he wasn't exactly sure either. From what I could gather, his team is responsible for cell cultivation engineering needs, but more than that, supposedly, the groups of cells he's looking at are entirely unique to any previously studied genome, including within federal databases. As I understand it, the main goal is to keep them alive with the side project of understanding what stimuli can harm the cells, and how they respond. Seriously, just what are we looking at? Entry 3, October 24th, 20X. My manager just died. I don't think anyone was going to tell us. Morrison tried to sell the team on her leaving the facility due to a personal matter, but it sounded like crap from the beginning. More so when I heard a couple of the higher-ups specifically mention her death in passing while working one of my later nights. Guess classifying information doesn't hold up to human error. My coworker Maya has 2 theories on why. Either it's to keep us productive by preventing us from getting distracted by the news of her death, or it's because death isn't an uncommon thing here, taking a shot of whiskey on it being the former. Still, it feels wrong to continue our work as if nothing happened. I didn't always get along with Wendy, but I think her death at least deserves to be acknowledged. Everyone deserves a moment of silence. This brings into question other reassignments or leaves of absence. If I die, will the same thing happen to me? Entry 4, February 13th, 20XX +1. They're making me manager. Going to be a short post as I apparently have a party to attend. Abed and Maya found it fit to put together something to celebrate my promotion. Somehow, they got high, quality peppermint schnapps into the facility. I'm excited, but simultaneously, I can't shake the ghost of Wendy from my mind. Part of me feels guilty for taking her position. Another part tells me this is what my entire life has been leading up to. I guess we'll see. Entry 5, March 8th, 20XX +1. Quick post. Things have been going great. Abed somehow smuggled cigars for a movie night with Maya and some of our co-workers. I swear that guy has some crazy connections. Something to look into. I kid. Probably. I'm not a smoker, but when in Rome. Also, why does his room have a pool table? I didn't even know that was an option. Gotta thank the taxpayers for that one. I can envision myself here with these people for a really long time. Might even leave with some lifelong friends. Entry 6, April 19th, 20XX +1. They're finally letting me see it. I was informed yesterday that they're allowing me to see the specimen on which all this has been based. I suppose I impress whoever is above us in my 2 months of management. Operational support is running as smoothly as ever in my short stint. Or maybe this had always been the plan for me. Regardless, it almost feels like a dream. However, per the standard unnecessarily cryptic governmental practices, I'm not allowed to know when I can see it. Or apparently, do anything that shows an unusual level of anticipation, whatever that means. I'll update later. Entry 7, May 8th, 20XX +1. I don't fully know how to describe what I'm feeling right now. I can't fully remember if I was driven to a different location or walked somewhere within Central Lab 40. 7B. All I can remember is being injected with something, having a bag placed over my head, and then coming into consciousness in a lab. At the center of a hodgepodge of wiring, tubes, and screens was a large tank. Within it was what looked like a pale, amorphous blob. The closest thing I could compare it to was an octopus with large boogie eyes. Where a normal cephalopod would have a beak, a sizable gelatinous sac was present, from which 2 snail-like stalks would occasionally expand and contract. At the end of each tentacle were flexible digits that tirelessly explored their transparent prison. Intermittently, it'd flash brilliant colors. An electronic cadence would sometimes follow, and an iridescent skin flap with tiny, intricate patterns would extend from its cranium. I imagined it was as if it were showing off extra neurons, almost like a display of its intelligence. But then again, how smart is a creature that was in the state it was in? Noticeably, a significant amount of gray slime seemed to have accumulated at the bottom of its tank. It didn't look like a lifeless mucus, but more like fungi or a slime mold. It would spit these rigid structures from its stalks that would quickly find their way to the tank's edges before disintegrating and settling at the bottom. Supposedly, these would build up and routinely need cleaning, but they were fascinating nonetheless. As I sat there observing, Morrison was beside me. Given his position, I assumed he'd seen this thing countless times. And even still, he appeared spellbound by the specimen. It was almost as if he was in a trance. But how could I blame him? What we were observing was fascinating. Something entirely new for our species. Before I knew it, I was rushed out and debriefed on the situation. It was found in the depths of our oceans, so they say. Apparently, scientists using an unmanned drone caught another one of its kind, giving birth to the creature we have here. Or rather, it gave birth to a lot of eggs, and this is one of the few that survived. The parent was caught later on, after various forms of genetic analysis on top of other tests. The original research team discovered that it contained a very minuscule genetic relation to any known animal on Earth. And even then, it would suggest a very basic shared genetic connection that predates the formation of our planet. That's when the federal government stepped in. Still, all this effort over the identification of animal. I wish I was naive enough to believe there wasn't much more to what they found. Entry 8, June 29th, 20XX+1. There's a weird vibe in the lab lately. What was once a place of passionate folks who were all too happy to have a conversation has turned surprisingly cold. I don't really get it. We're all stuck here together, isolated from the rest of the world. Leaning on each other was the only thing keeping us sane. And now, people kinda keep their heads down. It's throwing me off. Also, there's a strange smell now. I don't know if anyone has picked up on it yet, but I catch whiffs of it occasionally. I'm going to do my best to stay in my room when I don't have to be in the office. Maybe the cleaning crew has been slacking on clearing out the vents. Entry 9, July 5th, 20XX+1. We didn't get a 4th of July party this year, though it feels like we've all been working harder now than ever. Morrison actually yelled at a guy today. I didn't know he had that in him. He's always been so even, keeled. I've seen some guys mess up pretty badly in the past, and his first reaction has always been, "It's okay. How can we do better next time?" I feel bad. I mean, he really tore into the poor bastard. Thankfully, Abed and Maya seem to be okay from all of this. Abed's been busier as research needs have ramped up, but I was able to talk to Maya alone for a bit. She brought up similar concerns in addition to the fact that supposedly the lab is looking to divert funds, resources, and personnel from other wings into research. According to Maya, due to unforeseen circumstances regarding crucial people in other non-essential departments, the lab no longer sees it fit to waste resources maintaining them. Janitorial services have been majorly reduced. Our human resources department is gone. Employee enrichment services are gone. Our accounting department has been reduced. And all research on how these cells can apply to modern medicine has been scrapped. All this, among other things. What the hell is happening? The smell is getting worse, by the way. Entry 10, August 21st, 20XX+1. I didn't know who to ask about leaving, so I discussed it with someone on Morrison's team. I didn't want to go to him directly. He's been scary lately. What they told me was that because of the contract I signed, and because of the things I'd seen, I absolutely had to stay the remainder of my agreed-upon term. Be fully debriefed by an R representative, which no longer exists, have multiple meetings with multiple councils and unnamed people to discuss my findings, and wait for an accounting executive, which no longer exists to perform an audit to ensure I wasn't lying about my use of government, property, or finances. I'm also subject to a personal investigation of an unspecified period. Alternatively, I could attempt to breach my contract and be thrown in federal prison, or worse, effectively, I was screwed. I figured I'd vent with Abed over a bottle of whiskey, but he's been unresponsive to my messages, and I haven't seen him around the lab. I decided to see what Mia was doing when I came across a disturbing sight. What looked like some sort of mold was staining the lab walls. Not overly so, but enough to where it was hard to walk by without noticing patches of it, most notably around the vents. I mentioned this to one of the few janitorial staff members, and he told me it was normal. Apparently, it had shown up relatively recently. When they looked into it, they found it wasn't mold, so it was probably harmless. Maybe staining from damaged pipes. Either way, he promised to look into it, but I don't have much faith there. When I finally reached Mia's room, she told me she was feeling sick and couldn't talk. Come to think of it, I've also been pretty under the weather. I'm starting to get hot flashes completing this entry, so I guess I'll end this here. I'll take the excuse to watch horror movies and pass out for 12 hours. Entry 11, November 2nd, 20XX+1. Morrison got into a fight. Per usual, he was berating a researcher over his findings regarding cell cultivation and the ideal temperature to maintain one of the eggs we had in storage. Apparently, the results weren't good enough. Mind you, we don't know anything about this animal. We're starting from scratch here and performing miracles to keep this thing and its siblings alive, much less routinely finding the absolute best conditions for it. To make a long story short, Morrison actually ended up trying to strangle the man. For an older guy, he's surprisingly strong. It took 5 men to pry Morrison off. The guy he attacked had to go to the on-site infirmary. Afterward, everyone kept on like everything was normal. I had to get that out of the way before returning to my last update, so I got really sick, like bed, bound for a solid month. I'm just now getting back to work in the lab. I've had to run everything from my computer. Painful as it was for me, being sick isn't the interesting bit. It's what was coming out of my body. At first, I was expelling your run of the mill throw-up. Greenish-brown, icky stuff. You get my drift. But in the 3rd week, it was grayish-black. Not only that, but in the unfortunate event I couldn't make it to my bathroom, I'd often see what looked like tiny maggots crawling from the bile and escaping into who knows where. Mia had a similar experience when I talked to her about it. The funny thing is, I can't remember anyone else getting sick like this. Maybe they had and didn't talk about it. I don't know. Luckily, my absence wasn't missed. People kind of just filled the gap without much thought. And when I came back, it was a seamless fit. I wish the rest of the government ran this smoothly. Entry 12, December 25th, 20XX+1. The mold on the walls has grown significantly, and large patches of the stuff have overtaken much of the lab. In any other circumstance, we'd get put on quarantine, but people keep working as if nothing is happening. I don't know if this bit is in my head, but it also feels like people's skin is starting to reflect the color of the pulsating moldy walls. Morrison especially looks gray and puffy. He's also sweating a lot as of late. They all are. Despite this, productivity has never been better. No one talks about anything other than the project. Everyone comes early, stays late, and only eats what's needed to keep them functional. Though everyone else still keeps gaining weight somehow. We've made massive breakthroughs in cell cultivation and have hatched some of the eggs we had in cryo. Apparently, the new specimens look different than the one I saw. Not sure how. One of my coworkers came up to me today to ask me for the status of some reports. The smell was unbearable. The skin on the fatty tissue that had accumulated on what was once a slender neck was peeling badly. The yellowing of his eyes had reached the point where they were nearly amber, and thick veins on his hands writhed as if something was using them to move around his body.